What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, I have a crazy story time for you guys today. But before we get started, you might notice I'm in a different space. I have put up some of the stuff that you guys have sent to my P.O. box up on the wall over here. I know I told you guys like when we got this house that I would film story times on this wall, and I just haven't for some reason. So, you know, different space. But if talking about drug dealing or selling drugs, if that triggers you in some way, please click off of this video and I will see you in my next one. But for everyone else, let's go ahead and get started. So a lot of you guys ask me every single day if I'm triggered by things or if I have relapsed in my past or what that has looked like for me. So just for me, and for those of you that do not know, I'm a recovering addict with over 8 years of sobriety, but for me, that took a long time. So there would be so many times where I thought I had my addiction under control, where I thought that I was okay. I just partied. I'm not an addict. I'm not that person over there. And what I would do, and I think a lot of addicts do this, is I put what I thought the worst addict was. I put that person in a box. And as long as I wasn't what that person was, whatever I had made up in my head, as long as I'm not doing the things that that person is doing who's a really bad addict, then I'm not an addict. Like, I'm so much better. And we do that to rationalize our own behavior. You know, it's not so bad, it's not that bad, or I'm not that bad, or I'm not doing bad things. And we do that to make ourselves feel better. We do that to make it seem like we're okay, when the truth of it is we are not. So I was living with my childhood friend. We had an apartment together, and she, to her credit, always tried to get me to be sober. She always tried to get me to have a real job, not be a dealer, and get out of that life. She wanted that more than anything. And that was not something I was willing to do back then. So even the conversations that we used to have about it, I would just brush her off. You know, like, I'm not gonna go work 50 hours a week and still struggle to make ends meet. I'm gonna do it my way and make sure that we're not struggling. And that was really always the rationale that I used. The ends always justified the means. I didn't care about her feelings. I didn't care about what I was doing to my body. I didn't care. I was just a very broken, very empty shell of a person. In order to prove to my roommate that I was okay and that everything is fine and she's being dramatic, it's always what I used to tell her, which is so shitty, I would stop using for a couple of weeks at a time and just try to prove to her that I was okay. And I would do this using Suboxone. I would get the stop sign pills and I would take them. I bought them off the street. I never did that through a doctor. I did it on my own way. And I really wish that I knew more about medically assisted treatment back then. I had no idea that I could use this in a healthy way and I could work with a doctor and get off heroin permanently. I had no idea what that was. All I knew is that if I took these like stop sign like pills, Suboxone, I knew I wouldn't get sick, or I wouldn't get as sick. So that's what I would do for a few weeks, just to try to like prove to her that I was okay. So I had stopped for 2 weeks at this time, and my roommate worked her ass off. She would work night shift at a home for mentally disabled adults. She loved her job and she loved the clients, and she just worked really, really hard. And I was so proud of her for doing that, because that's not an easy job. So I really looked up to her for that, because it's, like I said, it's a hard job. Well, because she worked night shift, I would be up in our apartment, sometimes all hours of the night, and sometimes I would fall asleep at our kitchen table. I think I have a selfie from me back then, and I'll put it up here. You can't really see the kitchen, but it was a very small kitchen, and sometimes I would be up counting money, and that was like my biggest obsession. I would be counting money, just counting to make sure it was all there. Like, why? And to this day, I cannot have cash on me because I readily associate cash with drugs. So for me, I can't keep cash in the house. I don't like it. I don't like to see cash. I don't like to carry cash. Not a big fan. I could have $1,000 in my bank account and not think about drugs. If I have $1,000 in cash in my hand, I think about drugs. My brain just associates the two. So that is a trigger for me, and I do not like having cash. So we had this kitchen table. I would stay up and I would be counting money, or I'd be making bags, or I'd be rolling blunts, and I just have like my whole little setup. I had different lock boxes that I would keep throughout the apartment, and I would hide them, because if someone breaks in and they take one lock box, that's okay. I got like 5 more. So that was like my rationale at that time. You know, I was very protective of my cash, and I would hide it all over the place. So there would be times where my roommate would come home from work, at the crack of dawn, and I would be passed out at the table. Well, she had a really bad dream that she would come home from work and I was dead, and in her dream I was covered in dirt and she couldn't wake me up and I had died and she wasn't here to help me. So she was just constantly telling me about this reoccurring nightmare that she had where she would come home and I wasn't alive. And because of that, I decided to stop for a couple of weeks. I turned off my phone, I turned off everything. I wasn't selling even anything. I wasn't selling weed, I wasn't going out, I wasn't doing drugs. I was just trying, and I know it doesn't seem like a long time, but 2 weeks to an addict and to a dealer, it is a long time. It's 2 weeks of me avoiding people. It's 2 weeks of me not selling them anything. It's 2 weeks of not getting high. It's 2 weeks of basically torture, because the first few weeks that you are sober is really, really hard. Now, a couple of weeks prior to the event that I'm about to tell you guys about, I had met this guy and I had heard rumors of someone that is pumping my hometown area full of heroin. And the way that people were talking about him was so strange. They didn't know his name, they didn't know where he was from, they didn't know anything about him, they just knew that he was putting on local dealers. And that means like fronting them a bunch of stuff and then they would sell it and pay him back. So he was putting on dealers. Now, I'd heard about that and I wasn't really concerned about it, wasn't really worried about it, didn't really care. I had my own thing going on. I didn't care about whoever this guy was that was putting on local dealers, right? Didn't bother me at all. And then I had quit for a couple of weeks. So I am in my apartment with my roommate this day and she wants me to like watch The Hills with her. I am not a fan of reality TV. I've never liked The Hills, Laguna Beach, Real World, any of that. I've never liked that. I also personally hate The Bachelor. I think it's the creepiest concept ever. Just saying. I know y'all like it. I don't. So moving on. She wants me to hang out with her, maybe order some pizza and watch The Hills. And I already don't want to do that. I mean, I'm down for the pizza, but I'm not down for watching The Hills. So I get this phone call, and as soon as I saw the number, it was a New York City number. Now, I lived upstate. I knew right away who that was. I knew right away it was this guy, and I had just met him a few weeks before on like this very random deal of mine. And he was pretty nice to me when I met him, but I knew that this was his number. Somehow I just knew. And I knew that he was trying to put on local dealers to move his product, and every piece of me did not want to pick up that phone. I wanted to ignore his call. But the addict in me was stronger than any kind of reasoning or logic, and I answered it. And I said, hello? He said, yo, do you know who this is? And I'm like, yeah, I know who this is. And he's like, I want to talk to you real quick. Why don't you walk towards this gas station and I'll pick you up at this gas station? I was like, all right, bet. I hung up that phone and I looked at my roommate and I just knew I was already about to break her heart. But the reality of the situation was we were about to be out of money. And anytime that I was about to be out of money, I did whatever I had to do to make sure that we could pay all our bills, get food, do what we wanted to do, and not struggle. And I wasn't even trying to find a job. And I know it had only been a couple of weeks, but I wasn't even trying to find a job. I was just laying around the house, not doing anything. And not only was I addicted to the drugs, I was addicted to the lifestyle and the rush and the money. I was addicted to all of it. Every single piece of it. I wasn't just addicted to the drug. I was addicted to how I would mix up the drug and put it in my arm. I was addicted to every single component of dealing and using drugs. Every piece of it. So I had met this guy for the first time and he offered me a large amount of dope and said I only had to pay him half of what it was worth. And that, I couldn't turn it down. How could I turn it down? I almost immediately told him, yeah, sure, I got you. And he gave me a very large amount of dope and I walked home, and it was like the longest walk of my life, because now I have to go to my apartment and tell my roommate that not only am I gonna sell drugs again, but I'm going to be selling a massive amount of drugs, and everything that you thought I was doing before is now amplified by 10. I'm not just nickel and diamond anymore. This is a big deal. This is a lot. We're talking thousands of dollars worth of dope every single day going through my hands. And this was dangerous. It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. So I remember walking home I'm like, how am I gonna tell her this? How am I gonna tell her this? Because to me, this is like a big moment in my drug dealing career. And I remember being excited, but I also remember feeling like shit because I was gonna let down my roommate, a person that has tried to get me sober, a person that wants me to do well. But she is no match for my addiction, and neither am I. And there is no way I could have turned that down. I just didn't have the willpower, and I wanted it. I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the best female drug dealer that New York had ever seen, because that's the lie that addiction told me. Addiction told me that I could be the smartest, the funniest, the richest, the most powerful. I could be the best female drug dealer. I could have done that. In a male-dominated world, I could have been the best. Because addiction will lie to you, and addiction will tell you that you are not an addict. And all the while, you're destroying your body, your relationships, your family, your friends, your life. I opened that door and I walked in my apartment, and my roommate's like 3 episodes deep in the hills, and she's kind of laughing, having pizza, and she's like, yo, come on, sit down, sit down. And I just stood there. I just stood there by the door because I didn't know how to tell her, and I couldn't sit down because I have to stand up and I have to tell you that I just got put on and our whole life is about to change. I said, look. And I had shown her the dope that he just gave me. It was a lot. And I'm like, look, I couldn't turn this down. I only got to pay him X amount of money. It's worth this. We're about to be balling, and I'm sorry, but I just have to sell this and then I'll be done. I will never forget the look on her face when I told her that. She was shocked, she was heartbroken, she was mad, but she didn't even say anything. And in that moment, I realized that I had pushed her so far, and I had broken her heart so badly that she didn't even know what she could say. There was nothing that she could say, She knew that she couldn't stop me. Now, as you guys know, if you've watched other stories on my channel, this was not the deal of a lifetime. This was a deal that almost cost me my life on so many different occasions with him. Not to mention the fact that I could have very easily overdosed, and I could very easily not be sitting here in front of you guys today. I actually have overdosed. And I am sitting here because I was revived with Narcan. This is not a game. Addiction is not a game. It's no joke. It is scary, it is dangerous, and addiction only leads to 2 roads: prison and the ground. I'm gonna end today's video here. I really hope you guys enjoyed this story. I hope you took something from it. I hope with every story I tell you, learn something about who I am, how addiction affects not only me, but the people around me. If nothing else, if you are still struggling in addiction, please know that I am living proof that sobriety is possible. And if I did it, there's no reason why you can't pull yourself out of that lifestyle. I'm not stronger, I'm not smarter, I'm not better. I just decided to be done. And I gave every ounce of my energy that I used to pour into drugs, I put that into a new way of life. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober. Please do not break the law. And I'll see you guys in my next one.